Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about what I think needs to be fixed in college football 25. There's already been some reports. They're potentially coming out with the first patch finally here soon. And a few things that they're changing I am very happy about, but I am still pretty underwhelmed when it comes to this game, especially the dynasty mode, the lack of options, the lack of customization. But I do think this is probably strategy by EA considering college football, the video game is finally back. Don't give all the features in the first game. We got to wait for college football 26. Then we're going to another big thing. Then college football 27. Then college football 28. So that's really what they're going to do. But I'm going to be going through some things that were immediately problematic right from the jump when it comes to Dynasty mode specifically. Really haven't played Road to Glory. I know they don't have the high school thing anymore, which and, in the 2014 game wasn't very good either, but it at least gave you a nice little vibe coming into your character playing at high school fields and things like that. But I'm not going to be talking about Road to Glory. I'm going to be talking about mainly the Dynasty mode, the recruiting. Personally, I know people have really had a big issue with some of the recruiting. I think it's almost impossible to get recruiting 100% right in a video game just based on the dynamics. Like, there's been a few dynasties where I've gotten like 7 5-stars in a class, but to do that you've got to win like 3 or 4 straight national titles, or you've got to win like back-to-back national titles as an Ohio State or an Alabama, and then it's just going to happen. And I kind of like the idea of building a class that is basically impossible to build in real life, like trying to get 10 5-stars. I think that's kind of fun. So the recruiting, in my opinion, I know some people don't like it, but it's very hard to balance something like that. I've always said that, so it is what it is. I'm more so worried about the sim engine, and that's one of the things they said they were going to fix. The sim engine completely broke the dynasty mode for a number of reasons. Number one, obviously, if you're playing year one and you're looking at, you go to the SEC standings and you see Georgia at 3-3, it's just like, that's so unrealistic. It's not even close. I would wonder how they implemented the sim engine. Did they just bring it over from Madden, like legitimately, because of the amount of parity we've seen with this sim engine in the dynasty modes, where you've got Ohio State losing 2, 3, 4 games? I did a simulation just randomly for a video on my channel, and Rutgers won the Big Ten. And I know Rutgers has an easy schedule, whatever, but I mean, they went 12-1. They won the Big Ten championship. They were the number 2 overall seed. That's just that's literally impossible in terms of happening in real life. Now you might say, I mean, that's cool. It's different. I guess, I mean, everyone has their own opinion when it comes to these games, but something like that, I just think it makes it so unrealistic that it's kind of hard to really care too much about the dynasty mode right now. So they said they were going to fix that, but to me it's just not about proper weighting. By the way, another thing, I just don't understand why they cannot import actual made up FCS teams. When you see I don't even schedule FCS teams because it's so it's so unrealistic. I don't want to face FCS Midwest. Why not just make up a team, make up a city? Like, there's so many FCS teams that nobody knows anyways. Just make up something, or just, you don't even have to make up a city. Just use a city that doesn't currently have an FCS team. Give them some generic logo that's not too bland. Make it realistic, and give us like 6 or 7 made up FCS teams rather than saying FCS Midwest. I mean, I don't know. Is it some type of legal thing? Couldn't they just make up teams to make it seem more realistic? That's another thing I was thinking about. It's like, I mean, we're seriously 11 years later and we still have to deal with FCS Midwest, FCS Southeast. And then, of course, they weren't scaled properly. Those teams, their overalls should be in the 50s. Like, it should be almost impossible. And everyone was saying that. It should be almost impossible for an FCS team to beat an FBS team. But obviously, the sim engine is a major issue, and they need to scale it properly. I don't know if they just imported the Madden one into it, maybe changed it a little bit. Certainly, it's definitely higher scoring, I will say that. Almost too higher scoring. Another thing, like, when it comes to that, I've seen simulations where Minnesota will be facing Iowa, and the final score is like 55-48. What? I know it's just nitpicking, but it's like, that would just never happen in real life. Like Minnesota and Iowa having that high scoring of a game. But to me, that's really the first major problem in terms of college football 25 and what they need to fix. Another issue is the defense. It is almost impossible to play defense in college football 25. I think some of this is just from how fast the game is. They did put a ton of effort into the gameplay. They could try and say, well, in college football 25, it was all about the gameplay. Then in college football 26, we're going to expand, but just the lack of customization of the dynasty mode, the lack of ability to look like number one, even like with the Heisman leaderboard, what a letdown that is. They don't even show the full season stats of the players, and it's only 5 players on the Heisman watch. Like when you look at, I still remember when I was younger playing NBA 2K11, and just the franchise mode that they had was so much more just in depth than college football 25. It's a real letdown. Like you go to the Heisman watch, you can't even click on the player. So hopefully in college football 26, because they're not going to implement this in 25, but hopefully in 26 they'll give us a lot more history on our team throughout the years. And I mean, that's just something that's been in a lot of the other, sports games. I'm someone that more so likes to control a team. I mean, I'll play some games, whatever, but more so, I mean, the games take a while. I really don't want to sit there for 20 hours. I'd rather just sim through some seasons, recruit a little bit, and kind of create a fun little ecosystem. But it's very hard to do that when you can't even look back on certain things in terms of history. And also another thing I think that would be cool to include, like the ESPN FPI, where they have this model, they have this algorithm that they release. It's like a power ranking. It's not necessarily the official rankings, but it's like a power ranking based on how you recruit, and then obviously if you win or lose. That would be something cool for them to include. But that's just kind of like the details that I feel like are missing, like an ESPN FPI. Also, I think the recruiting is kind of a really real letdown. I'm not really going to get into this, but like when you see the fake players, I would almost rather, and I know people won't agree with this, rather than giving us like fake faces on these players, because the faces to me look like they're 25-year-old men, 26-year-old men. I'd rather it just be like no face, just like, a random, just like an outline or something like that, so we can just, guess for ourselves, because I've just noticed a lot of unrealistic faces when it comes to this. I mean, they got like, they've got like the number one overall player. I'm not going to get into it, but it's just really weird. I'd rather them just do a face outline rather than them showing somebody that looks like he's like 30. It's just unrealistic to me. I don't know. So when it comes to recruiting, just the way it's done, I thought they were going to have a better interface in terms of recruiting than they currently do. It's kind of similar to 14. I thought it was going to be significantly upgraded. It's really not. And then also, obviously, another big letdown, having 0 generic stadiums in the game. It destroys team builder. I mean, you literally have people going through, looking, and seeing, okay, which stadium has the least amount of paraphernalia of the home team, so I can use them. Because if you use like Georgia Stadium or Florida Stadium for your home stadium, because you have to pick someone, you can't just pick a generic stadium because they don't have any. You're trying to see, how many Florida Gators logos are there? It's just so stupid. Like, how couldn't they at least this is really all they had to do. Just make and this is like a bare minimum, just make 3 different stadiums. One stadium that seats 25K, that's for like a lower tier school. One stadium that seats 50K, that's like a mid tier, maybe like a Boise State type. And then one stadium that's at like 95K. And if you wanted to go a little bit more in depth, you could do 3 different stadiums to choose from that are at 25K, 3 different stadiums to choose from that are at 50K, 3 different stadiums to choose from that are at 100K. There's just, I don't know, there's so much missing when it comes to that. They didn't even have any generic stadiums, and it's been really bad with Madden as well. They implemented the Madden relocation or expansion where you could expand the league with those generic stadiums, the 5 different ones. That was implemented maybe in like 2012, and they haven't changed it at all, EA. They haven't added any more generic stadiums or anything like that. To me, that's just laziness. They're just more concerned about Ultimate Team. But that's another thing that's kind of a letdown in terms of College Football 25. Now, I know they are coming out with some updates, but really any of this in-depth stuff when it comes to past history and Dynasty mode, I can pretty much guarantee that's not going to be in this game at all. Another thing that I had talked about previously was the progressive sunset. That's not going to be in this game. There was a rumor right before the game came out that a streamer said that it was going to be in the game. But to me, that's just another thing that's pretty inexcusable. In the year 2024, we're supposed, and the other thing is the weird start times as well. I was looking at Tennessee's schedule, and the other thing is they have 3 bye weeks. Does anyone else notice that, where I don't know what it is, but once you get into 2025 and 2026, there's each team has 3 bye weeks, and then you've got 30 different teams playing in week 0. There's teams playing on Sunday. and like the start times are all weird. Like teams will start at 1 o'clock. Normally, no, I mean, yes, teams do start at 1 o'clock, but not Power Four teams. Power Four teams normally it's noon, 3:30, 7:30 or 8. It's not like that every week, but when I see like Tennessee having a game at like 1 o'clock, 5:30 in the afternoon, 4, and these are Eastern Standard Time. It just doesn't make any sense. So the start times to me are a little bit unrealistic. Not that that's a huge thing, but that's just another thing that is kind of annoying. And then the progressive sunset. You start a game at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. By the fourth quarter, it's still going to be sunny. It's there'll be shadows over the field, but they don't move at all. So that is another thing that's a real letdown, and that's probably something I would guess that will not be implemented into this game. Maybe it will be. Maybe they'll do a patch update and they'll implement it. But if I had to guess, that's something that they're going to say, well, it's going to be in College Football 26. That's probably going to be one of the big things that might be advertised in terms of that, along with a more in-depth Dynasty mode, because they have to know that people are really disappointed in the Dynasty mode. They love the gameplay, at least from what I've seen. They love the gameplay. They hate the Dynasty mode. So that is just kind of my reaction on some things that need to be improved, especially when it comes to the Dynasty mode. I mean, with recruiting, I'm more so annoyed with the interface and everything like that. And just also, I wish we could import actual recruiting classes. This is one of the big problems with college football when you compare it to the NFL. With the NFL, you could play like 10 years and you'll still have real life players in the league. With college football, if you simulate for 5 years, it's just all AI generated crap. There's no actual, real kids because they're all graduated. So it would be cool if we could generate the actual recruiting rankings from 2024, 2025, 2026 to where we could at least have real life kids in our dynasties until at least 2028 or 2029. That would at least give us 5 or 6 years to where it's relatively realistic. And that is something that would be cool. But the game's not on PC. It makes it a lot harder to do that. But those are just some of the issues that I have with College Football 25. I'm sure some of them will probably be fixed, especially the sim engine. I wonder what they'll do with the sim engine. Another thing, by the way, they've got very aggressive dynamic crowds to where I almost think it's too aggressive. And this really doesn't surprise me, but like there's some teams that really don't have that horrible of attendance, even if they're like 2-4. And you look at the stadium and it's like there's like 20 people there. But they're trying to implement this, and I mean, I give them credit for doing it. Dynamic attendance is harder to where like the entire upper deck is empty and you're trying to be more realistic. But it is definitely, it's almost like they did an overkill on it, which doesn't surprise me at all. It's hard to get that right exactly, but especially when I was looking at like Army and they were like 2-4, I saw a screenshot and there were like 10 people there. That's just not realistic. Army does not have that bad of an attendance, even if they're having a bad year. But that's just nitpicking. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.